hilarious stuff. He's quite the character. He did clarify yesterday, though, that when he would supposedly taunt opponents by saying, "I will burn your childhood home to the ground," with kids in it, he said, "Of course, with no children inside of it." So that was nice right there. There's a great Tucker Craft highlight call by the great Wayne Larrivee, who joins us now. Our conversation with Wayne is brought to you by Steam Fitters Local 601. Learn more by visiting steam601.org and National Fire Sprinklers Association. Visit them at nfsa.org. Good morning, Wayne. How are you?
Good morning, guys. How you doing? Good week.
Doing great. Great call, by the way. You don't mind me saying great call to you. You've done this a long time. I'd mean
Appreciate
that. Really. That was a hell of a play. He just takes off like a bat out of hell, double stiff arming guys down the field. Fun player.
He showed some pretty good feet to stay in bounds on that.
Yes.
Play. You know what I mean?
Yes. Well, and I always say that when you hit, what round was he drafted in again?
Was it third round, I want to say?
Third? Yeah. And he was the second tight end that took that year behind Musgrave. Musgrave was considered to be the better pass catcher, and Kraft was going to be a bit more of the wham blocking guy, which he can do, but he can also catch and run. Got a nose for the end zone. So that's a bonus right there. The best way to turbocharge your team in the NFL is to hit some booster bonus picks, third, fourth, fifth round guys who play like first rounders because they're dirt cheap, Wayne.
Yeah, no question about it. Absolutely. Now, you don't have 5 years of control. You don't have that fifth-year option on those guys, but you're exactly right. And the best teams in the league are built with third, fourth, fifth-round draft choices. I think San Francisco, their inside linebackers are like fifth-round picks, something like that. So you hit on those guys, and you do a good job with your first couple of picks in the draft, and you're on your way to having a good team. Absolutely.
Speaking of which, fourth-round pick Evan Williams out of Oregon played a lot last week, and they moved him into a slot corner role at times because of Jair's absence, and he played very nicely. Saw some all-22 cut-ups from those who know football on him. That's another guy that could be a real booster for this team.
No question about it. He and Edger and Cooper, they're going to have to find ways to get these two guys, the off-the-ball linebacker Cooper and the safety / utility knife, I guess you would call Evan Williams. He can play a lot of different positions. Both are playmakers. Both have an eye for the ball, and the ball finds them. So I think those are guys you're going to see get a little more time as we go forward here.
All right, your thoughts on the Dobbs situation now that it's been smoothed over, resolved, we're moving forward. This was an unusual episode for this team, the way they have a very tight culture, locker room, and just way of doing business. What do you think is the net result of this?
Well, I certainly hope it will be, moving forward, and this becomes a small footnote at the end of the season. But, that remains to be seen, obviously. I think that from the standpoint of the locker room, they've been through this type of thing before with Jair Alexander a year ago. It didn't seem to faze them. I don't think this is going to faze them. And by the way, I from what I can gather, Rome is going to come back and he'll be fine. He'll be in the fold and he'll be in the game plan because he's just too talented a player not to be.
Who has more targets, Reed or Romeo this week?
You mean right now?
No,
during the game.
During the game, Sunday.
I think it depends on how the Cardinals play them, okay? Jaden Reed gets more and more attention now, but of course, the reason he's able to get open is because they do a lot of pre-snap movement with him. So you can't just take, okay, we're going to double team him wherever he goes. That's harder to do when you have a player in motion. Rome is more stationary in where he lines up prior to the snap. And so you can get a double team over to him, or you can cover him a little more closely. Reed's a guy on the move. So it's hard to tell. It depends on what the game plan wants for this week. But I think they'll be fine with the targets they get.
When you look at this team, again, they've played two rushing quarterbacks, not the same as Kyler Murray, but they've played it. They've seen that. What are the biggest things that scare you with this Arizona team as you prep yourself?
Well, I think a couple of things. Obviously, Kyler Murray and his ability outside the pocket. Not so much worried about him inside the pocket, although he's a good passer. He has a nice arm. He has a good knack for the passing game. And that's what he doesn't get credit for. Why? Well, because his feet. Look what he did to San Francisco. He got outside the pocket and rambled 50 yards for a touchdown last week. That kind of set the tone for that game. That's the thing you can't allow to happen. That's where he's dangerous, outside the pocket, both running the football, and he's very good at throwing the ball on the move. Now, the other guy I worry about is James Conner. Now, Conner has, of his 400 and some yards rushing, 230 yards are after contact. He is among the league leaders in missed tackles forced, 22 in 5 games. So these are two guys that really concern me quite a bit. The receivers, to me, as I look at the tape, I've watched their last 3 games. I'm watching their last 2 for the second time. Their receivers have trouble getting separation from coverage. So if you get guys wide open to the secondary with this team, then you know there was either blown coverage or the Packers are having problems that day. Marvin Harrison's a guy, he averages about 1.9 yards of separation in terms of, and that's very tight coverage for a receiver of that caliber. So
we talked about that this week, actually. That's one of those things that came up with Romeo Dobbs is right there too. Worst as far as like top 6 in the league, and Harrison was like 3rd in the league worst as far as creating separation.
Yep, that's the thing. I see that with all their receivers. Michael Wilson is probably their most accomplished receiver right now. Nobody really knows who he is, but he's a solid receiver, doesn't get open very well. And that's where Murray has to pinpoint that ball, and he's capable of doing that against tight coverage. He's not afraid to throw into a tight window.
Wilson, 3rd-round pick in 23 out of Stanford. You're right. He's a guy that you're like, who? What? Exactly. So, yeah. Let's talk about this Cardinals defense. Budda Baker is a real wrecking ball for them on defense. How do you account for what he does out there against this Packers offense?
He's kind of a wild card, Czabe. He's a guy who plays everywhere. He's a good blitzer if they want to use him in that regard. He plays the deep secondary, a sure tackler. That's the thing that jumps off the screen at me in watching them this week. He's a very sure tackler in the open field, and that's what you want from your safeties. They've got to be good tacklers in this day and age. But Baker's a big key to this defense. Their front, it's okay. Their linebackers are fine. I really like this Mack Wilson at linebacker. He was a 5th-round draft choice of Cleveland. The way they're deploying him in this defense, he wears number 2. Every time you see him, you think he's a defensive back. Their linebackers are small. They're on the small side, but they're very quick, and you think they're defensive backs or safeties, and Wilson can get into the backfield and create havoc.
Yeah, both Wilson and Kaiser White wear single-digit numbers as linebackers. 2
Drive me nuts.
7. So I agree, Wayne. It looks so weird, and it throws off you and me and everyone our age. How many years of football watching in the NFL? 30, 40 years plus. You're just accustomed to seeing certain numbers. But yes, they can bring it for you. So the other question I had was Christian Watson. He practiced this week, which was a bit of a pleasant surprise. Could we see him out there on Sunday?
I suppose it's possible, Czabe. It'll be interesting to see what he does tomorrow and if he's involved in that walkthrough. That'll be the big key. He's been limited in practice this week. To me, just guessing, and I don't have a lot to go on here, but I'm thinking he's probably a week away. But we'll see. I mean, hey, if he could play, that'd be great. But again, one of those guys on the perimeter. We talk about this with Jair Alexander. Is Jair going to play this week? Limited in practice. These are guys, cornerbacks and wide receivers. You better be 100% from the waist down because that's how you make your living.
We have been streaming live here on the interwebs via both Facebook and on Twitter, correct, Luddy? Or just on Twitter?
No, and YouTube as well.
And YouTube. So we send it out, this segment with Wayne, 3 places. A listener, a viewer on Facebook by the name of Ken Miller says maybe during a bye week, you guys can do a segment about Wayne's bookshelf I see behind him. I love that guy. 20 more years. Well, first of all, Wayne, I don't know if you got 20 more years in you. You'll take 10.
Quite frankly, I don't have but maybe 10 games left in me. You know how the way it's going for me this year.
No. But that said, care to give us a quick sampling of what's on the bookshelf behind you?
Oh, Yeah, I mean,
Go
well,
pull one off the rack there, and don't pull off, Good Night Moon, which I know is one of your favorites.
yeah.
Good night,
There goes
Moon.
Wayne. He's going to go pick a book. I bet you one of the books that has to be there has to be the David Marinus biography on the great Vince Lombardi. The Yankees book.
It's even got
there you
pinstripes
go.
in the book.
Yeah, see, yeah.
And I do have David Marinus here.
Yep.
I've got the Super Bowl thing, the Legacy documentary that came out a few years ago.
Nice.
That's all
Must
there.
watch.
What else do we have here? This is a great book, North Dallas 40. If anyone's ever read that.
Oh, the book North Dallas 40. Yes, they made that into a movie. Famous.
They made that into a movie. I've got this. Vince Lombardi on football. It's really good. It's 2 volumes. It's a great book. Across the way, I've got Cliff Crystal's History of the Green Bay Packers, which is absolutely spectacular. A lot of different things here. I got a couple of basketball books and some baseball, that kind of thing. Yeah.
I love it. Looks great.
Have you read all?
Right, you want to?
Have I read? Yeah. Well, I've read.
I have books too, Wayne.
I've read my favorite book, Instant Replay. I've read at least 10 times. Does that count for something?
That counts. There you go.
And what is that book for those that don't know?
Instant Replay is the Green Bay Diary, written by Jerry Kramer and Dick Schaap of the 1967 season, Lombardi's last year as head coach in the Packers' third consecutive NFL championship. It's a dynamite book. It's a really nice.
Yes.
It was the first of the books. It came out before Ball 4. It was the first of the sports books that took you behind the curtains of what goes on in a sports operation.
Yes, you mentioned Ball 4 by Jim Bouton of the Yankees, which was not as favorably viewed because it aired some dirty laundry for the Yankees. And I believe Bouton was kept out of Veterans Day for many years for writing that book.
He was. He was. Yeah. Well, what a great book.
What a great book. Yeah. So that's one to read. Instant Replay about the Packers with Jerry Kramer. That's, we could have done that during a bye week. We did it right now.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, have a great call on what looks to be a brisk and perhaps moist Sunday at Lambeau.
Oh, really?
Field.
We're supposed to get some weather.
Yes. Huh? Yeah,
wow.
Some weather.
You haven't counted on that.
Wayne, as always, a pleasure, my friend. We'll talk to you next week.
See you next week.